the Murloc.
Hello there, Murloc. How are you doing? I dropped my Hearthstone and I don't know how to get it back. Please help me.
Cower in fear, foolish mortals, it is I, the Murloc. Come to eat your entire harvest and add unpleasant tasting chemicals to your water supply. The answer to your particular query is really quite simple. There was in fact no Hearthstone to begin with. Following this logic, the Hearthstone did not exist, and losing something that does not exist is in fact impossible. Therefore, the non-existent Hearthstone that clearly did not exist is not lost. Since it is not lost, then logic dictates that it is, in fact, in your possession. Fool! Ha ha!
Ask the Murloc.
Dear Murloc, could you tell me how I can download coordinates and where?
Yes. From a purely philosophical perspective, does not the idea that you can acquire physical coordinates to your chosen destination from a medium that does not, in fact, have any physical substance or being seem a little troubling to you? If, in fact, said coordinates are purely ethereal, then surely they cannot possibly be relied upon to lead you to anything other than a purely imaginary destination that Nietzsche, in fact, said may reside inside a giant pie. The Murloc has been eating a variety of colourful pills today. Ha-ha!
Ask the Murloc.
Dear Murloc, could you tell me what food is good for? I haven't found use for it so far.
Well, indeed, if music is in fact the food of the soul, then should not the lowest form of music, rap, be the food of the body? Since the vast majority of so-called rap music or hippity-hop is not easily digestible, then does it not stand to reason that all of the starving children in the world can in fact blame 50 Cent for their troubles? Ha! Generally speaking, however, in a purely philosophical perspective, you have just spent 2 minutes of your life listening to me spout irrelevant philosophical drivel. I own 2 minutes of your life, which I will sell back to you at a premium price. Now be gone, before you are swallowed whole by your own inadequacy. Ha ha!
Ask the Murloc.
Oh dear, the Murloc's got philosophical, and that can only mean trouble. Ask the Murloc here on Blue Please. This is WoW Radio, of course, and I'm Total Biscuit, if you hadn't already noticed. Right, okay. Again, this show is open to your topics. And it will be for the foreseeable future. I'm not kidding, it will be. I have absolutely nothing that I haven't already covered that I actually want to talk about, that I specifically will go out and research and talk about for 15 minutes. There is nothing that I can think of that I haven't already discussed that I feel up to discussing. So, there were two choices. Either I take the show off the air, or I open it up to you lot until I come up with some new ideas. It's that simple, really. So, if you want anything discussed, I will not discuss class balance. One, because I don't have a level 60 of every single class. Therefore, I'm obviously not up to discussing class balance. And two, because discussing class balance is like running yourself against a brick wall. It's pointless, and it only ends up with people getting hurt. Right, okay. I have a whole bunch of stuff. Oh, this is an interesting one. Okay. My question for you is, this is from Zirar. My question for you is, why would I even bother buying the game? I don't own it yet, but I do listen to WoW Radio. Everywhere come, forums, radio, whatnot, people are complaining. Not enough endgame content, not enough mid-game content, not enough solo content, bad customization, ganking bastards. Everything that could be wrong is wrong if you believe the public opinion. About 5 million people are playing the game, and it sounds like half of them are complaining about it not being good enough. Why do all these whiny bastards keep playing if they can't do anything but complain about it? Personally, I don't believe these sorts of people. They are the people that were complaining about their toilet paper having 4 layers instead of 5. Others might believe them and not buy it because of bad criticism. Tell them why they should buy it and eat 1 less pizza per month. Right. The reasons to buy WoW. Now, first, before I go on to that, let me address the whole thing that he's saying. And it has to be said, I do agree with him to a degree. If you did read the forums, you would actually come to the conclusion that this is the worst game ever created by man. I'm talking worse than the 50 Cent game, worse than Crazy Frog Racer, and worse than that crazy Christian game where you have to dungeon crawl using a Bible. It's awful. according to the forums. However, there are 5.5 million people playing the game, so either Blizzard has come up with a very clever scheme to entrap 5.5 million people into playing, or is it 5 million? I really can't recall these days. Either that, or there's something good about the game that keeps you all playing. Now, which is it? Now, when you listen to this radio station, I hope you get a relatively balanced view of the game. I, for one, refuse to pull any punches as regards to mistakes that I perceive that Blizzard has made. I'm not going to pull a punch on that. If I think Blizzard has screwed up, I'm going to tell you so. Blizzard doesn't pay me anything, and I don't owe Blizzard anything, really, either. It is a game that I subscribe to, and it's a game that I spend my time, and often my money, and I'm not just talking about my subscription fee either, to run a show on a fan-based radio station. Effectively, they are getting free promotion from me. However, that does not come without a price, and that price is a relatively balanced view of the game. And I think the term to use here is warts and all. Now, this game is not perfect. Don't have any illusions about it. It isn't. There are things about this game which infuriate me. But then again, there are things about this game which do not. Here's why. Why should you buy World of Warcraft? Okay. Here's my sales pitch. This is the kind of thing that I say to people in my shop. You'll be aware that I work in a game store, which is a good part-time job to have. Although I would like it to be full-time, but then again, they're not giving me the hours, so there you go. It's a good way to earn money. I get a good staff discount, and I get to talk to people about video games. It's my ideal job at the moment, till I move on to something that's actually vaguely respectable. So, yeah. Anyway, point aside. Why should you buy it? The way that I view World of Warcraft is it's the most accessible MMO on the market. And I believe this has contributed a lot to its success. It's accessible because you can jump right into the game, and you're not going to be laid down with complex stuff. You don't have to create stats for your character. You don't have to choose a secondary class. You don't have to choose what spells you want, or what skills you have on your hotbar, what skills you take into battle instead of other skills. You pick a class, and you customize how it looks. That's it. That is all you have to do to get into the game. And the class descriptions are really very clear. Classes are very clear. They are very distinct. So if you go into the game, you will have an idea of what you want to play, or if you don't, you will at least get an idea from reading the descriptions and seeing what sounds like your cup of tea. So, let's say, right, I'm the kind of person that likes to play a sneaky character. Well, it's a rogue. I play a rogue. I'm a person who likes to play a healer. I play a priest. I'm a person who likes to play a nuker. I can play a mage. I like to be able to control minions and all that kind of thing. I could play a hunter, or I could play a warlock, depending on my preference. It's quite clear as to what I'm going to play. I don't have to roll up a set of stats like I would in Dungeons & Dragons, which, let's face it, is something which can screw you over for the rest of the game. Any game that requires you to roll up a set of stats that you stick with and can't re-roll later can screw up your character development. That's not the case here. If you want better stats, you simply have to get better equipment. If you've got a piece of equipment that isn't very good, just get rid of it and get another one. Your stats are equipment dependent. So, it's this sort of safety net which prevents you from making major mistakes on your character that is quite attractive. And that adds to its accessibility. Now, any idiot can jump right into the game and they can effectively play it. From the first 5 seconds of being in the game, you will know effectively what you're doing. Go towards the guy with the big floating thing above his head. Talk to him. He tells you what to do next. Blah, blah, blah. Questing is good in that way. It makes sense. What else is good about the game? The graphical style is attractive. It's unique. It's not what you would expect. Look at, say, EverQuest, and you'll see a generic-looking fantasy MMO. Look at World of Warcraft, and you see something that is unmistakably Blizzard. It really is. There's nothing that looks like that. It's a very unique graphical style, and that works in its favour. It may not be the finest graphics ever, it may not have the most advanced technology ever, but it's unique, and that is a big bonus. Now, again, character progression is very clear. which is a good thing. You feel like you're being rewarded every couple of levels. Your character noticeably progresses. It's not so much that your character progression is controlled by you, it's shoved in your face, and you'll actually tend to find that people do sometimes enjoy that kind of thing. They like to be told what to do. That is why we accept having governments in the first place. That is why people buy Britney Spears albums, because the music industry tells them to. They love being ordered about. It's a subconscious thing. They like to be controlled. The game itself tells you where to go next. It tells you how your character is progressing, and that is attractive in some respects. Whereas some people, like myself, a lot of the time would like to customize my character and do everything myself, there is also an attraction to being led around by the nose. And that's how it is. The character progression is very clear. It makes sense. Every couple of levels, I get new skills. Every 2 levels. Doesn't matter what. Every 2 levels, I will get something new that I could play with. So I'll never have a elongated period of feeling like my character is stagnating and stuck in a rut. I'll always get something new. That's a motivation to keep going to level 60. And there's another thing. Level 60. Unlike something like EverQuest, or some of the hardcore MMOs, Final Fantasy, where you get level 300 or something ridiculous like that, which will take you years, you can get to maximum level quite fast. Even a, quote, casual player that plays an hour a day can get to level 60 eventually. And that's fine. So the grind itself is not all that big, and the grind is hidden beneath a very, very believable veneer of questing. Grinding, there is not a single area of the game where you actually have to grind for experience. There are always quests you could be doing. There are often multiple quests you could be doing, and that's a good thing. Questing is more enjoyable than grinding. Some questing is just grinding with a pretext, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Suspend your disbelief for a moment and say that you are slaughtering 60 quillboars for the good of the land, not because you need to grind 60 tusks. So yeah. Questing, good area of the game. The PvP, simplistic yet enjoyable. PvP strategy is relatively simple. It's quite easy to pick up how to PvP, but it's harder to know. It's based around knowledge. Let's face it, it's not skill, it's knowledge. So knowledge of your class and knowledge of everyone else's class plus specific itemization equals success. Itemization is a big plus in the game, in almost every way, in both PvE and PvP. There are a massive variety of things you can have. They all look different. There are a lot of different graphics in the game. Almost every item looks different. Admittedly, there are some which look the same. There are some which look similar, but every item pretty much, with a few exceptions, looks different. It didn't used to. Say, Wrath. You know, the Wrath set used to be awful, but they're updating the graphics as they go. That's one big plus of the game. Your character feels like it's yours on the basis of your equipment, not on the basis of your character, because your character may look exactly the same as 1,000 other characters in the game, but your items define you. And they look good. They look very good. It's very satisfying to have, say, Zinrock, a sword which is 3 times the height of most people. It's very satisfying to hit things with. Battlegrounds are a big plus. The idea that you can PvP in a controlled environment with specific goals. You can also world PvP if you wish. The role-playing community is okay. It's not the best ever, but it's relatively vibrant. It's certainly better than titles like Guild Wars, I tell you that. There's no role-playing in that. It's full of morons. The community is actually quite good. Now, the point that you brought up was that the forums are full of morons. Yeah, they're full of whinging idiots. If you look at the forums, you believe the game is terrible. However, the forums represent nothing more than the absolute vocal minority. Bear in mind that... Let's take an example, actually. Let's go over to the official World of Warcraft forums. I'm going to do that right now. worldofwarcraft.com. Typing with one hand for the lose. So we'll load up that. Just waiting while it loads. Yeah, that's one disadvantage. Their site often goes down, but never mind. Forums. Right, let's find something on general discussion. Something important. Okay, a sticky thread. Now, the biggest sticky thread I can see on here has 362,000 views. Now, let's assume for a moment that each one of those was an individual person, which it is not. We know that already. Then that would be 362,440 people who view the forums. Assuming they all viewed that. Bearing in mind it is a pretty major thread. Let's just assume that that's how many people use the forums. But it's not. A lot less people actually use the forums. Mainly because that's views. If I go on there right now, I'm not logged into World of Warcraft forums. Right, I've just gone and viewed that thread. I go back. Oh, look. More views. I wasn't logged in. It doesn't represent a person. I can go in there as many times as I like and up the viewing if I wish. But that's not the point. Let's assume for a moment that there are 162,444 people who post on the forums. Let's get out the calculator and find out just what a percentage of the community that actually is. Right, okay. So, now how many people are there playing in the US? 2.5 million? Something like that? Let's just take that as a guess. So, let's assume that every single one of those was an individual person, which we already know is not. 362,444. So we want 2.5 million. 2.5 million. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, go. 200. Yeah, 2.5 million. And we want to divide that by that number. Is that 5 zeros or 6? I can't see on my monitor. It's very, very grainy. Ah, there we go. Divide that by 362,444. What do you get? 6.8. So 1 in every 6.8 people apparently post on the forums. If you were to go by that. We already know that there's a lot less than that because that viewing is nowhere near that. How many people have posted in the Burning Crusade thread? There's 1,080. That is the biggest thread on there. 1,080 people have posted in there. And that may be multiple people, which it no doubt is. So even if every single one of those views was an individual person, 1 in 6.8 people. Now, is that the minority? Of course it's the minority. It's the vocal minority. We all know that it's going to be far less people that actually post. There's no way of really telling because it doesn't have a registered users and active users, but it's blindingly obvious that less people post. So, the conclusion is that anyone who posts on the forums is in fact a part of the vocal minority. You've got to bear in mind that whiners are, in general, the vocal minority. That's what makes them whiners. That, generally speaking, they don't have a valid concern, which is why they're the minority. If it's a valid concern, most people will pick up on it. They're not stupid. Sure, they might be incredibly silly. They're not stupid. They recognize a game problem when they see it. So, when, say, mages whine that their class is broken, and then other players say, oh, look at all these mages. Let's take, for example, the ridiculous Mage Union, which I featured on last week's show. What a bunch of tards. 200 people in the Mage Union. Therefore, that means mages are broken. 200 people. Wow. You win. Out of 5.5 million. That's brilliant. There are more people listening to my show right now, and this is live, not just counting the podcasts. There are, in fact, twice as many people listening to my show than are in your Mage Union. And you claim that the Mage Union represents the view of mages? Don't be absurd. And that's the point that I'm trying to make. Don't listen to the forums. Don't listen to the vocal minority if you're thinking of buying this game, because the reason everyone is not posting on the forums is they're too busy having fun in the game to do it. They don't need to post on the forums because they're happy with the game, they're having fun, and they're enjoying it. And let's face it, subscriber base is not exactly dropping, is it? Yes, indeed. Get your topics in. You listen to Blue Please here on WoW Radio. I think it's time for a little bit of Children of Bodom, let's face it. When isn't there a time for Children of Bodom? trashed, lost, and strung out. Enjoy.